Hello everybody and welcome to Storm Reads, and I have decided that I'm going to try to do a 5 on Fridays. It may be once a week, it might be every other week, it just depends. We'll see how it goes. I thought it would be kind of something that I could do that would be kind of quick and easy and fun, and you could see what some of my favorite tropes are in different genres, and favorites in different genres and things like that. So the first one I'm going to do is cozy mysteries that are set by water. It could be an ocean, a bay, the sea. One of them is a bayou, but it's just something that's set by the water. Since this is usually the time when everybody's like vacationing and enjoying the water, and nobody can do that right now. So I thought, well, why not get lost in a cozy mystery that features water, and we can kind of vacation through our books. And so that's what I'm going to do today. And so with that, I'll just get into the books. I have a bit of a cheat sheet here so that I can remember things about these books. You'll have to forgive me if I can't remember a lot about them. I read like a ton of cozies. I've read so many. Actually, I've been trying to write down a list of all the series that I'm involved in. That means I've at least read at least one or two of the books, and it's outrageous. So even remembering characters or where they're from or things like that is really hard. But I just wanted to kind of, give you what my favorites are in these. So the first one is the Library Lover series by Jen McKinley. And this is the first book. It's called Books Can Be Deceiving. And this one is set in Briar Creek, Connecticut. And the main characters is Lindsay, who is a librarian. I think she got let go or downgraded or something from her other job. She worked at a fancy public library type thing where she did like research and things. And so she's come to Briar Creek for a job there, and she meets Captain Mike Sullivan, who is a boat captain, and they kind of solve mysteries together. At first, it was kind of like him trying to watch out for her because he kind of liked her, and she's always getting herself into trouble. At first, she wasn't very well liked by the police for being nosy, but now her and the police, I don't know if she's chief or detective or what. Anyway, and I think her name is Emily or Emma, something like that. Anyway, but they're pretty good friends now. Even though she doesn't like her getting into her investigations, she's not quite as doesn't get as mad at her as. But anyway, this one is very binge worthy. There is 11 books in this series, and the 11th book hasn't come out yet. It will be coming out, I think, in September, and I so can't wait for it to come out. But I pretty much binged this series like in just a matter of months. I think I read like 5 in 2018 at the end, and then I finished out the rest of them and got caught up and everything at the beginning of last year. And then now I am waiting like everybody else to get the next book. But very good series. My next one is called The Tourist Trap Mysteries by Len Cahoon. And this one is a guidebook to murder, which is book 1. And I would have to say that this was probably the very first cozy mystery series that I read. It is set in South Cove, California. And this one has Jill. She's the owner of Coffee Books and More. And she goes there because her aunt Jackie is there, and she set up this business, and her aunt Jackie is helping her with it. And she inherits some money or a house, I think both, from an older lady who dies, and she finds out that she was killed, and so she that's how she starts getting into crime solving and things like that. And she also meets Greg, who is a detective there, and they are pretty steady on in the book, and I really like both of them. And Aunt Jackie is a hoot. I just really like her. And there's 11 books in this series. The 11th book being is coming out soon. I can't remember exactly when, but it will be out this year. And so I can't wait to get a hold of that one. I've pretty much listened to all of these books. Susan Boyce is the narrator, and she does like an awesome job. And so I would say that this series got me into cozies, but it also got me into loving to listen to cozies. Then I have the Mainly Needlepoint series by Leah Waite. And this one is Twisted Threads. It's the first book. And it is set in, I always want to say this backwards, Harbor Haven, Maine. And the main character loves to go to the beach a lot, like, I don't know, beaches of Maine or whatever it is, and they have, what do you call them, crab bakes or lobster bakes or something like that, anyway. But, so the main character in this is Angie, and she comes back to Harbor Haven, at the request of her aunt, because I think her aunt's name is Charlotte, because they have found her mother who had been missing, and they finally found the body, and so she comes back, and she ends up talking her into staying and running Charlotte's business she had, because she's getting older and would like to retire, and it's a needlepoint business, and there's a group of needlepointers, gals and guys, and they take orders for these needle points, and then they work on them and they sell them. And so she ends up running the business, and she also solves murders. And she has a love interest that comes into play, and his name is Patrick, and they never really got like real solid into the relationship. There's 9 books in this series, and it's very sad because there will always just be 9 books in this series, because the author passed away last year of cancer, and I was very, very saddened to hear that, because this is one of my favorite series, and the author, she was a lot of fun. She even did interviews on my blog that I have, and so she was just a lot of fun. So I'm kind of sad that there will not be any more books in this series. Next up is Books by the Bay series by Ellery Adams, and this is A Killer Plot. It's the first book in the series, and this one is set in Oyster Bay, North Carolina. Oyster Bay, North Carolina, and I should know this because I am currently trying to finish up this series, listening to it. And this also features one of my favorite narrators, Karen White. She narrates this whole series and does a very good job. But this one features Olivia and Limoges. That's it, Olivia Limoges. And she, let me think about it here for a minute. Oh, she owns 2 restaurants, and she is also kind of a rich philanthropist type person. She inherited money from her family, and so she has this really fancy place by a lighthouse. There it is. And at first, she's a little standoffish and a little kind of feels like she's a little snooty. She's a writer, and she's wanted to be part of this writers group that they have there. And at first, I really didn't like her. Like, when I first started listening to it, this one and probably into the second one, I wasn't really sure if I was going to like this series, because the main character was just a little uppity and a little snooty, and I just wasn't sure I was going to like it. But I really do like this series. It's grown on me a lot. She has grown on me a lot. She's not quite as bad as I thought she was at the beginning. So she's grown as a character, and because she's got these new friends and everything too, I think she's used to being alone. And so having all these people depend on her and then looking into these mysteries and stuff like that, I think has really opened her up and kind of made her a little bit more friendly. And her boyfriend is a Sheriff Rawlings, and I love the Book by the Bay writers. They very flavorful group of people. There's different ones. There's guys, gals, young, old, and they all write different genres, and so they have a really good banter, and they also really good at coming together and solving mysteries. So it's really good. I am currently on the 7th book, and there are 8 books in this series. I'm gonna say that this series is done because the last book came out in 2017, but I don't know because she writes a lot of series. I don't know how she keeps up with them all. I mean, she writes a lot, and she's very good. I don't think there's a series I've read by her that I haven't loved. But like, I know she has at least 5 or 6, if not more, series going. So it could be she just hasn't got back around to this one. I don't know. Or she could have finished it off at 8 books. I'm not sure. But I'm going to consider this one being complete anyway, unless another one comes out. The last series I'm going to talk about is the Cajun Country series by Ellen Byron. And this is Plantation Shutter. It's the first book in the series. And this one is centered around Pelican, Louisiana. And so there's a lot of good Cajun stuff going on here if you like that kind of thing. Even one of the books is a Mardi Gras murder. And so it's all centered around Mardi Gras, which is really cool. I've had a lot of fun with this series, and my favorite furry friend is on the cover here. This is Gopher. I love him. He's one of my favorites. And anyway, this is about Maggie, and she comes home after a heartbreak and decides to help her parents kind of with their B&B. They own this big plantation, and so she is there to help it. She also has another job that she works at too, where she's a I think it's called a docent, something like that. Anyway, where she works as a guide in another plantation and kind of shows people around because it's open to the public, and she dresses up in like the fancy dress and stuff like that and does that. And she is also an artist. Her boyfriend is Bo in this series, and he has a little boy, which I cannot remember his name. Anyway, he is, I believe he's a little autistic of some spectrum on the autism scale, and he's very kind of shy, and she found out that through painting and everything that it was a good way to get to know him. And they also found out that he was a very talented artist because he's very good for his age. Because he's only like 8 or 9, but he paints really good pictures. And anyway, and her grandma is really funny. Her parents are really cool. There's just a lot of good side characters in this one, and it's just one of my favorite series. All of these are my favorite series. It was hard to put them in like any kind of order, so I just wrote them out, and here's what we got. But I do love all of them. This one is the newest out of all of them. There is only 6 books in this series. The 6th book comes out October, I think, maybe. It's got a kind of a Halloween kind of vibe cover to it, and it looks really cool. So I'm thinking it comes out somewhere around September, October, and I can't wait to get to that one. But there we have it. So there you have it. There's 5 books that are kind of set by some kind of water that I very much enjoy, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.